Hey, it's Yule here from Rossum Healthy, and today I'm really excited to interview Robby Barbaro from all the way from Santa Monica in California. Rob is a type 1 diabetic, and you've been on a fruit-based diet for how long?
Over 10 years now.
Wow! Raw vegan, right?
Yes. 100%.
Fruit-based, raw vegan, over 10 years, and as a type 2 diabetic. So today Rob is going to talk about fruit and diabetes. And first question I wanted to ask you is this, like, oh, I'm diabetic, I'm not supposed to eat fruit.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. It's like my passion in life right now, to share with the diabetes community at large, whether one's type 1, type 2, pre-diabetes, type 1.5. Fruit is actually a perfect food for people living with diabetes. And I know that sounds weird, but the reason is because the underlying condition that makes blood glucose hard to manage for people living with type 1, and what is the cause of prediabetes and type 2 diabetes is insulin resistance. And people need to really understand that. And insulin resistance, the definition, is fat stored in tissues that are not designed to store fat. So what exacerbates that situation? What makes that worse is eating a high-fat diet. Even a medium-fat diet is not good for improving insulin sensitivity. So our entire focus at Mastering Diabetes, which I do with my colleague, Dr. Cyrus Kambata, is teaching people how to reverse insulin resistance. And why is fruit a great food for people living with diabetes? It's because fruit at large is low in fat. There's only a few fruits that are high fat, but in general, fruit is a low-fat food.
Yes, and certainly, personally, over the years, we've been working with a lot of clients with pre-diabetic or diabetes, and the speed that they discontinue, especially obviously type 2, they discontinue their medication in a matter of like 2-3 weeks. They're just totally healthy, right?
Absolutely. It's 100. Yes, we run 4-day retreats, and in 4 days, people, whether they have type 1 or type 2, see dramatic improvements. And this is when we're feeding them in a condition where we're controlling all their food. There's no added fats, only the fat that comes in natural whole foods, which will be roughly 6 to 7% of calories from fat, which is more than enough. These people see improvements in 4 days. So we have type 2s coming there, reducing their medication. Some people getting off medication in 4 days, and they get to eat as much as they want. At our retreats, all the food is in a buffet style, as much as they want. Nothing is restricted. They eat more carbohydrates than they ate before they came, and they end up reducing their medication over and over and over again.
Exactly.
And you guys see the same results with clients. Anybody who applies it will see that result.
So what kind of foods should people watch out for if they've got type 1 or type 2 diabetes?
Okay. Yeah, so anybody living with diabetes, type 1, type 2, pre-diabetes, any food that's high in fat. So animal products, right away, those are high-fat foods.
Yeah.
Even in the plant world. So if you start eating a raw vegan diet, you might want to be careful of having too much avocado, too much coconut meat, too much nuts and seeds, too much durian. Those are some of the higher fat foods that are still part of this diet. Then we're not saying no, like don't eat those, but you have to be cognizant of how much of those you're eating. Whereas the other foods, like berries, bananas, cherries, all the other fruits, you can eat as much as you want until you feel comfortably full.
Yes. Yeah, and also high-fat diet is like, if you're not eating enough fruit on a raw food diet, then you will be automatically following high-fat diet. And if you've got blood sugar issues, obviously it's an issue.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And tell me about your journey. How has your type 1 diabetes improved? And what's been happening?
So for me, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 12 years old, just about to turn 13, and I'm 29 now. So I've been living with it for over 17 years. And I tried a lot of different approaches, and eventually I stumbled across Dr. Graham and the 80-10-10 diet, and that changed my life. And when I started doing that, my insulin sensitivity went through the roof. So the amount of carbohydrates I can eat is upward of 700 grams per day, and then my total insulin usage is roughly 40, usually a little bit less, but roughly 40 to be conservative. So if you calculate that insulin sensitivity for a person living with type 1 diabetes, that's really, really good. That's a lot of carbohydrates for a moderate amount of insulin. And so we always teach people that insulin is not the enemy. You hear a lot of people on the internet talking about insulin being the problem. Insulin, you eat fruit, your insulin levels increase, and therefore you're going to get fat. And this whole thing is blown out of proportion. not really covered properly. Insulin is not the enemy. Insulin is a necessary, required hormone. So people like me living with type 1, we want to get to a place where we are injecting a normal, natural amount that my pancreas would have already produced if I didn't have type 1 diabetes. So that's where I'm at, and it's been amazing. My quality of life. So I had terrible acne on my old diet. I had plantar fasciitis, and I had allergies all year long. So I'll take Clarinex and Claritin D and Nasonex pretty much year round, and I was still getting sick. So I switched my diet. These things cleared up. Plantar fasciitis went away. Acne, I was on some of the worst drugs. They tried everything, all the creams, dermabrasion, where you go there and they like scrape your face, and then they got on an Accutane, and nothing cleared up my skin as well as a low-fat, fruit-based diet.
Yes, and I think people often with type 1 diabetes especially, they think, well, nothing's going to help me, so I'm just going to carry on and suffer the way I am. And it's not true.
No.
At least they can dramatically improve the quality of
Absolutely.
their life.
I mean, it's just general happiness getting to be able to eat fruit. So we're here at the UK Fruit Fest, and we have this one woman who came here. She just learned about me and Cyrus and what we're doing at Mastering Diabetes, and she 10 days ago, so she's like, oh, I'm going to come here, and we've been working together every single day, helping her make decisions, and she is just loving the fact she can eat fruit, and she's cut her insulin in half. She's eating more fruit than she's ever eaten. She loves it, and her insulin doses have gone in half already, and this is just in 3 days. So your quality of life, your insulin sensitivity, which is important for overall health, because insulin resistance is linked to a lot of chronic diseases. The number one killer of people living with diabetes is heart disease. So insulin resistance is linked to heart disease. So when I'm sitting here talking about how many total carbohydrates I'm eating, what my total insulin is, that's a measure of my insulin sensitivity, which is linked to your overall risk for chronic diseases.
Yeah.
So that's why that's important. So if you have insulin resistance, if you're eating a small number of carbohydrate and you need a lot of insulin, that's a good sign that you are living with insulin resistance, and that puts you at risk for heart disease and other complications.
Yes, so get high on fruits basically and
that's
transform
exactly
your
right.
life. Yeah.
That's so true.
Thank you so much for being here. It's
Thank
awesome
you.
having you, and all the best. Keep on sharing your success
Thank you
story
so much.
with people, and you can either completely get off your diabetes medication if you're type 2 diabetic, and if you're type 1 diabetic, obviously Robby showed you that you can dramatically improve the quality of your life.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what are your thoughts? Post your questions, post your comments below underneath in the comments section, and of course eat sweet, keep fit, and we'll see you again in our next video. Bye.
Bye.